Dr. Anderson, please take the class through the UPS case studies.
Delivering the best customer service means more than timely pickup and delivery. Our customers need the most current and accurate package tracking information possible. To ensure that, UPS developed the Delivery Information Acquisition Device, the DIAD. In 1991, UPS revolutionized the package delivery business when it developed and deployed the first DIAD. More than a decade later, UPS continues its pioneering development efforts with the fourth generation DIAD 4. To ensure maximum flexibility in the field, DIAD 4 incorporates new radio communication links that allow it to communicate almost anywhere, anytime. A built-in GPRS or CDMA radio, ensuring worldwide flexibility. An acoustical modem to facilitate dial-up. 802.11 wireless local area network connectivity to enable transmission within a UPS center. And a Bluetooth wireless personal area network and an infrared port to communicate with peripheral devices. Delivery information is sent to UPS as soon as it's entered. Drivers simply scan the package barcode, electronically collect the receiver's signature, type in the last name, and push a single key to complete the transaction and send the data. The DIAD 4 incorporates a color screen, which displays information in an easy-to-read, attractive manner to customers. The color screen also enables UPS to color code messages. Urgent customer pickup messages, for example, can be color-coded to alert the driver. DIAD 4 also introduces a groundbreaking new feature, GPS technology, to the handheld terminal market. This provides drivers with detailed directions to pickup and delivery points in order to improve customer service, particularly outside the United States. The powerful software behind the DIAD 4 enables dispatchers and center management to access the driver throughout the day with text messages. In addition to their list of predefined customer pickup locations, the addition of a one-time pickup can be added to a driver's work list on the fly, enabling UPS to take best advantage of the geographic location of its entire fleet for servicing pickup requests. With the new package port software, customer service has been enhanced even further. The DIAD now informs the driver if all the packages designated for a particular customer haven't been unloaded from the truck. It will also notify the driver if the package is being delivered to the wrong address. The DIAD 4 is the most comprehensive tracking device in the delivery industry, combining data collection and transmission technologies, digital signature capture, extensive expandable memory, and a rugged construction to withstand extreme temperatures and hard falls. The multiple options of the DIAD 4 ensure maximum flexibility for UPS drivers, ultimately resulting in customers having the most up-to-the-minute tracking information available at all times. At UPS, business always drives technology.
I never had a DIAD 4 respond so quickly before. So that's one thing I really like about it.
With the old DIAD, I had the keys memorized, so I would type it all in and I would literally watch it catch up to where I left it. This one is keeping right up with me as I input data.
Especially in nighttime, when you'll be able to use the touchscreen with illumination. It's just a definite big improvement from the previous DIAD.
What they actually love about the new experience of the DIAD 5 is they love how the clarity of the signature and how well it writes this time.
The signature, the signing in the DIAD 5, the experience, they love it. They say they can understand their signature, they can write better.
My customers' reaction has been wow. They really know that UPS is striving to improve technology from year to year, and it enables them to improve tracking and gives them more opportunity to improve their business.
I like the reduced size of the DIAD 5 because it's better to handle. The size of my hand, it can palm in my hand, and I could use one finger if I want to control the DIAD 5.
What I like about the Diet 5 is that it moves with me and it makes me more efficient in my job.
It's only about 1.5 pounds compared to the old Diet, which was about 5 pounds. Takes a lot of stress off your hands.
The Diet 5 is so much lighter. It's easier to carry. It has this really nifty straps, and I'm able to, when I hold boxes, I can actually hold onto the Diet this way.
I'm able to handle the Diet in my hand and be able to hold the packages to and from the customer. It allows me to be a little bit more efficient.
You don't have to push the ABC button as opposed to the last Diet, and basically all the keys are just there and ready to go.
The performance on the scanner actually is probably the best I've ever seen compared to all the others.
What I noticed immediately when I first started using it, I realized it wasn't an actual straight laser beam through the barcode. It's more like a block, a square, with a bullseye in the middle.
I was at the stop and I had 10 packages, and I saw the barcodes all had lines in it, and I knew that the old Diet would not pick it up. This one just picked them all right up, and I was so happy to save me a lot of time.
It's quick. It's quick, and that's what I like. Stop completing a package, it's quick. Scanning it, it's quick. Signature, it's quick. It's got basically the same pattern almost as Diet 4, so it wasn't really something that we had to get used to in a week or two. It took me maybe an hour.
And everything's just right there. That's what I like the most about it. It's like if you know how to use it's just like a cell phone. I have a touchscreen cell phone, so it's just like that, just like a second nature.
Overall, it's a great thing that the company came out with something like this. We definitely needed something like this.
So looking at that last scenario or video where UPS competes globally with IT, as mentioned, these are the set of questions you'll need to answer, at least answer one of these questions in the individual participation form located online to get participation credits for this week's assignments. So basically, what are the inputs, processing, and outputs of UPS's packages and tracking system? What technologies did UPS use? How are these technologies related to UPS's business strategy? Remember the 6 business strategy components that we talked about earlier? And what business objectives do UPS's information systems address? And finally, what would happen if these systems were not available? Just need to answer one of these questions in detail to get participation. Looking at the dimensions of the UPS tracking system, if we look at it from an organizational perspective, there are procedures for tracking packages and managing inventory and providing information. This is pretty intriguing in the sense that if you think about how UPS or companies such as UPS used to have to deliver packages before technology became available, we now have visibility at every step of the way. If we look at it from a management perspective, management can monitor the service levels and costs. They can ensure that the most optimal processes are in place to delivering the packages as fast as possible and at the lowest cost. And finally, the technology component. Handheld computers, barcode scanners, networks, desktop computers, and so on help UPS in delivering packages quickly. It's not uncommon to receive packages across the nation within 1 day. And certainly a couple days is not a problem at all for UPS. They're very efficient, and technology really helps them manage their inventory and getting those packages across the country quickly. From a business perspective on information systems, information system is instrument for creating value. The investments in information technology results in superior returns. And when that happens, productivity increases, revenue increases, and superior long-term strategic position can occur. Business information value chain. This encompasses the raw data which is acquired and transformed through the stages that add value to the information. Value of information systems determined in part by the extent by which it leads to better decisions, greater efficiency, and higher profitability. And from a business perspective, it calls attention to the organization and managerial nature of information systems. Basically, the end result of the business information value chain will always be profitability. So a question to you, what aspects of the business perspective might be lacking? Are there other perspectives that might provide a different picture, such as a socio-technical? The information value chain is one way to visualize the relationship between information activities, business processes, and management activities. Can you imagine any reason to create an information system besides profitability or strategic positioning? It's a good question. However, it's probably not likely you can think of one. And this kind of proves my point. One reason to create a system that is not primarily profit-oriented is to meet the information reporting requirements of government and other authorities. If we look at the business information value chain, we can look at it starts from the data collection and storage, the transformation into the business systems, dissemination of that data, and this dissemination can either be through printed reports, online reports, or other medium. So if we look at the business processes, this information can actually supply information to the supply chain management, the enterprise management systems, customer management, and knowledge management systems. From a management activities, it helps with planning, coordinating, controlling, modeling, and decision making. And again, as I stated earlier, it always leads to profitability and strategic position. In regard to investing in information technology, the investing in information technology does not guarantee good returns. Have you ever purchased software that you just didn't end up using because it didn't work to your expectations? It happens in business as well. In fact, I was with a project, and I'm not going to give the third-party vendor, but we had a demonstration by a third-party vendor who showed that their system can do exactly what we wanted it to do. So we purchased it. It was several $100,000. However, one of the things that we noticed once we implemented the system is that it couldn't do what the company said it could because they actually mocked up some PowerPoint slides to make it look like the system could do what it wanted to. So they kind of tricked us into that. It wasn't profitable, certainly. I mean, there's other legal implications to that example, but the point being is it doesn't mean we're going to get good returns by implementing a system. They're not the Lone Ranger, as you will, to all the situations out there. There's also considerable variation in the returns that firms receive from system investments. And then finally, some of the factors that attribute to that is the adopting of the right business model and investing in the complementary assets such as organizational and management capital. We certainly can, information technology only allows us to manage information. It does not make decisions on behalf of the company. Information systems typically are only a tool to allow us to see what is happening, and we can make decisions based on those observations. Many firms make significant investments in information technology, but for very little benefit to the bottom line. Each quadrant of the graph represents a different type of firm. Quadrant 1 represents firms that invest much less in IT but still receive strong returns. If we look at quadrant 2, the upper right hand corner, it represents firms that invest a great deal in IT and receive a great deal in returns. Quadrant 3 represents firms that invest much less in IT but they receive poor returns. And finally, from quadrant 4, it represents firms that invest a great deal in IT but receive poor returns. Where would you want your firm to show up on these quadrants? The purpose of the course in the book is to show you how to end up in the top quadrant, number 2, right? Which represents firms that invest a great deal in IT and receive a great deal in returns. According to the slide, although on average investments in information technology produce returns far above the return by other investments, there is considerable variations across firms. Started in a company that was manufacturing, and they had implemented an enterprise resource planning system. And when I came on board, my primary job was to evaluate the system to determine why the company wasn't benefiting from this implementation. So the first thing I did was I actually called in consultants from the company that actually developed the software, and they came in and said, we're not going to tell you what you're not using. We're going to tell you what you are using because that's a lot quicker. The company was only using about 10% of the capability. The implementation of this system was so poor that the functionality of the system couldn't be used or appreciated by the organization. When the enterprise system was implemented, the owner was trying to save money, so he himself went to the training and did this, what we call train the trainers. So he was trained, and then he came back to the organization and trained other people how to use the system and what happens in those cases, right? It's kind of like the telephone game where information gets lost. The more you repeat something, the less likely you are to be 100% accurate on what you're saying. So this was a pretty interesting, eye-opening experience. So what we did was we re-implemented this system and initiated much more of the functionality and tested it to make sure it was all working. So this is a prime example how there was a lot of money that was spent on this, and it was $1 million plus, but very little returns was experienced on this. So it's a good example. Talking about complementary assets. These are assets that are required to derive value from a primary investment. Firms supporting technology investments with investments in the complementary assets receive superior returns. A good example is invest in technology and the people to make it work properly. So the previous example I gave you where the owner actually invested a great deal in technology but didn't invest in the people to make it work properly because he himself was trying to train other people. Instead of having the professionals in the organization, i.e. the IT department, implement the system to ensure it works properly, he did it himself. In the book, there was an example about automobile companies, where these companies rely on investments in highways, other roads, gas stations, repair facilities, and so on to maximize the value of their primary investment. Hopefully you read that. Can you provide a different example of another company's industries or complementary assets? I want to kind of go back to this automobile company. There are many times where we're so reliant on other infrastructure to be able to make something happen. When I work in the education sector, and to get students, we need to be able to invest in certain areas to attract students. So we invest in publications, we invest in maybe airtime on radio or TV, and there's other investments that we have to make before we can actually invest in the company itself. It does no good on investing in technology to teach students if we don't have students in the door first, right? So we need to make sure we have technology such as, like I said, TV, radio, internet, advertising, and so on to get students in the door before we start focusing on how we're going to teach them. So there's a lot of reliant examples that we can go, or complementary assets. So complementary assets can include organizational assets, for example, an appropriate business model. Notice how we keep going back to that business model. Efficient business processes. We talk about managerial assets. For example, incentives for management innovation, teamwork and collaborative work environments. Have you ever been to an organization where you get rewarded for coming up with innovative ideas to save the company money? It serves a company well to implement those kind of incentives to be able to come up with innovation to save the company money in the long term, because they'll get a lot of return on their investment for that one. Also, social assets. These include the internet, the telecommunications infrastructure, and also implementing technology standards. One of the things to make a company very efficient in information systems is to have standards in place. So when we're developing systems, we want to be consistent in our approach, the way we document it, the way we actually code the programs, the way we train people, and so on. It makes it very consistent, so we're not having to relearn things on every single new project that we're doing. You know, firms that make significant investments in the complementary assets tend to derive a greater benefit from information technology investment than those that do not. A consideration of complementary assets should be a part of any firm's broader view of how to be creative and implement their own information systems. The managers must consider the dimensions such as complementary assets in order to derive benefit from the information systems and be successful. So the contemporary approaches to information systems, we look at a technical approach, which includes the management science, computer science, and operations research, or the behavioral approaches, sociology, economics, and psychology. The study of information systems deals with the issues and the insights contributing from technical and behavioral disciplines. So which of these two major types of approaches, behavioral or technical, do you find the most appropriate or accurate? And why do you feel this way? Keep in mind, the technical approach does not ignore behavior, and the behavioral approach does not ignore technology, but they are indeed two distinct approaches. So if we look at the technical approach, it emphasizes mathematically based models, also computer science, management science, operations research. And from the behavioral approach, we look at the behavioral issues, which include strategic business integration, implementation, etc. And psychology, economics, and sociology. Do you think it's possible to adopt only one of the two approaches to information systems and be successful? The most accurate position is that there is no single approach that can truly capture the full scope and importance of information systems by itself. When we look at management information systems, these combine computer science, management science, operations research, and practical orientation with behavioral issues. There are four main actors: suppliers of hardware and software, business firms, managers and employees, and the firm's environment, such as their legal, social, and cultural context. Can you describe some of the relationships between the four main actors? For example, business firms look to acquire the components of their information systems from suppliers of hardware and software. The firm's environment may dictate that the type of software a company uses, as well as the kind of employees that work there. The approach to this book, being a socio-technical view, it's basically the optimal organizational performance achieved by jointly optimizing both social and technical systems used in production, and it helps us avoid purely technological approach to business. The socio-technical systems perspective was discussed briefly in our previous slide 3. The critical aspect of this view is the balance between technological and the social or behavioral concerns. Sometimes a lesser form of technology may be the best option because it is more suited to the personal needs of the individual. An example of a lesser form of technology using manual data entry, creating a screen, for example, to create a new data instead of having the system create data. I'm currently working on a project it allows students to enroll into courses and get credits ahead of time based on their life experiences. We're asked to automatically insert data into the system that will allow us to do that. However, I was kind of looking at the effort for us to do an automated approach versus implementing a somewhat manual approach. The return on investment would have been about 40 years on this project. To create a system that allows the uploading of a template would have taken us about 100 hours to define, develop, and test. However, the process would only save the business about 10 hours a year if they manually entered data. It was not a lot of data that was expected to be entered, so why would we focus 400 hours of our time developing something that would only be used about 10 hours of manual data entry? Creating a screen would take about 40 hours to define, develop, and test. So the ROI, the return on investment, would have been about 4 years on this project by developing a manual approach. This is a much better alternative than 40 years, right? So guess which approach we went to. Definitely more of a manual approach. But keeping in mind, we also need to take into account the factors of accuracy, as far as data accuracy when somebody's manually entering data. What's the impact if we enter bad data? So that needs to play in, and we call that risk. So as long as the risk doesn't exceed the benefits, we went with the manual approach. The socio-technical perspective of information systems, looking at alternatives of technology and looking at the alternatives in the organization. This graphic illustrates the interplay between technology and the organization. The two continue to grow closer together until an approach satisfies both perspectives. You need to understand that the two sides do not always need to form an equal compromise. Sometimes highly advanced technology may be more acceptable than at other times. As you will see, with packaged software solutions and enterprise systems, firms are often required to change greatly in order to make the software applications work. That's it for Lecture 2. Any questions, please do not hesitate posting information in the discussion forum. And thank you for attending.